I signed up for arguably the world's strongest open tournament, the European Championship, with 119 Grandmasters, 81 International Masters, and 71 FIDE Masters. Round 6, I had a super crazy game against Latvian Grandmaster Paulius, who happens to be a viewer of the channel. I was very pleased to find out. When we analyzed the game, he mentioned to me he watched the interview with Ramesh, which is pretty cool. But let me show you the crazy game. We get to this position where I've sacrificed a pawn for some play, and I follow up with my plan here, which is the very interesting knight takes e6, also the computer's top move. Because after f takes, I get the bishop, and here he's in trouble if not for his sort of big saving move here, because I'm cutting the king with this fantastic bishop, but he's got b5, interfering with my pin, because after I take, then he wins a piece. But of course I don't need to take. I drop back with queen a3. He can trade this amazing bishop off and take on c4. And now he is a pawn up, but his king has some serious issues being cut by my queen. So this sort of position is typically right down my street, right? Like sacrifice a pawn, get a big initiative, and go finish them off. But here is not tricky to play. I played what I felt was a very natural move with rook on f to e1. And then after rook c8, bishop h5 check, king d7, and ended up regaining the pawn on a7 with queen a7 check and taking on a6. Actually though, in this position after bishop h5 check, he could have got away with g6, which we both dismissed at the time because it looks like it's really making this bishop stupid, right? It's not a move he wants to play. But after queen d4, king f7, and I drop the bishop back, this is better than him running with the king to d7. He can defend with rook e8, and even though his bishop's blocked in for the moment, he holds together his position, and there's no crushing breakthrough. Okay, in the game he chose king d7 just to try and keep this bishop super active, and now I knew I had the plan of pushing this a pawn whilst using the fact that his king is weak. Yeah, and in this position I wasn't sure exactly how to play this, and I thought that my queen should get off the a file so that the pawn could push faster, but I didn't need to start with this check, which is okay. But after rook c6 check, and here if we played rook back to c7, I basically lose a move to move my queen off the a file, which is not ideal. So he plays king d6, and he told me after the game he didn't want to repeat. I wasn't planning to repeat because I knew I should be better, and he was actually going for the win, which I thought was super duper brave, and I respect it. Objectively, it probably doesn't make much sense, but practically, like, this position is very tricky for both sides. And now I have to play like some sensible moves here, because if I'm not careful, he gets this rook out and he can roll me over with these big pawns. Okay, but I played it quite nicely here. I start with repositioning the bishop. Bishop g4 would have been good as well, but bishop f3, great diagonal for the bishop. He brings the rook in, and now I start pushing my pawn. Queen comes to d4, super active square for the queen, and now I spot a really nice opportunity to essentially activate my bishop, because my bishop's blocked in by this pawn chain here. And the way I activate it is by check and positioning the queen here. And he doesn't have a good way of dealing with this super active queen other than d4, which gains a tempo and shuts the diagonal. But now I've provoked d4, and this bishop becomes an absolute beast. Pawn starts rolling up, and he pushes his pawn with a big central pawns against my one pass pawn on a5. But his king is awkwardly placed on d6. I keep on going, a6. He activates the bishop, and now I stick the bishop into b7. And here I had two plans, which is tied with my bishop b7 move. And one is, can I just push the pawn and win the exchange? But I realized during the game here that this position is not clear at all. For example, if he starts with d3, yeah, like swapping the pieces kind of makes his king better on d6 because it gets closer to like an endgame, right? And actually here the top move, which is quite tricky to find, is king h1 to prepare f4, just get off the diagonal. But then he can play a move like queen d4, and I have to play very accurately here to maintain the advantage. Queen a5, d2, and it's a game. There's never really checkmate because these bloody pawns keep blocking up all the files. But yeah, that would have been a way to play. What I had originally thought, but I hadn't calculated clearly, is rook a5 could be winning. Because obviously if he retreats the queen, then this is all falling apart here. Probably I'd go rook d5 check, take, and win this bishop as well. And the key move to calculate here is c3, interfering with the queen, because if I like react to this pawn, I lose the rook. So I need to play rook takes c5. And initially I got very excited here because I thought rook d5 check and I'm winning a bishop. Well, here though he can play bishop e6, and yeah, the problem is I can't stop this pawn. This pawn is just completely killer, and back ranked mate as well. So rook a5 is actually a losing move, which luckily I noticed. And psychologically, I think I panicked a bit here because it's like I had two plans and I realized both of them are bad. But actually here the position is good. It's great even. I played some great moves and I just need to keep my calm, even though I'm down to like 15 minutes, which is enough time to make like six good moves here. Or is it 7 good moves? Yeah, 7 good moves from move 34 to 40 to make the time control. So a calm move like h3 would be fine. Just give myself some breathing room, potentially get the king out of the way. There's some move plan to play f4 at some point as well. Like I've just got a great position to play slowly. But the really concrete way of just winning this is really nice. You go b4. And the point is after c takes b3, can you spot the difference? There's no longer any c3, so I go rook a5 now, and this is just completely winning because he can't, yeah, you just can't deal with this c3 move. He can play queen c3, but I can just play a really, I mean, I could check and take with check, but probably even sexier is just ignore the attack on the queen and take the pawn. And after queen takes d2, this is going to be checkmate. So b4 he has to retreat, but now the queen's on the bad square and I can just gang up on the e pawn and his whole position collapses. So big pity I panicked here and missed b4. The move I went for was queen a5, but it doesn't really make too much sense. I guess my logic was it looks like I might be worse, and this end game shouldn't be worse for me with this big active pawn. But he plays it quite accurately here. He trades off my monster bishop. Potentially I should drop back with bishop f3 not to trade. But here I was trying to play a bit safer, not to lose this position, and I thought this end game could be good, because I'm a pawn up, right? But after a very accurate move king a7, I suddenly realized this endgame is not better for me, and if anything it could even be worse, because even with the extra pawn, like this pawn is actually a weakness and these two pawns are monsters. Yeah, I needed to make a move here I had like a couple minutes left. Played rook b5 to stop him from playing rook b8, but now he comes to rook e8, and I come back to d5 and rook c1. And I felt like I shouldn't be worse because my rooks are active, but I knew I needed to be accurate. I've got the threat of rook takes d3, cheeky threat here, so he defended rook e to e7, and now I just hang on to this pawn. So now he should play maybe rook c d7. Well, he's got a bunch of moves. He could start pushing these pawns as well. We're kind of in this weird bind where neither of us can really make progress. He hands me a gift here, and he plays rook e d7. And there's a beautiful tactic which I'd seen before he even made the move, which is I just go rook takes c4. And even though both the rooks are hanging, whichever rooks he takes, I take the other rook, and I get into a good rook ending. Really sadly, I can't take this pawn on g7 because d2, d1 makes a queen. So I play a couple very accurate moves here in the rook ending. I go rook c1, and now I need to bring my king round to stop this pawn, but I can't play king e1. So I go f3 with the right plan of king f2 to e3. King starts becoming active, king f2, rook e6, planning rook e2, and now rook e1. And now he plays the move I expected, which is rook c6, very natural move, which turns out to be a losing move here. What he needs to play very non-intuitive is rook b6, and after king e3, king c4, the point is you hit the pawn. Rook c1 looks very good, and sorry, rook c6, and I went for what I felt like would give me good winning chances, which is king e3, with the idea of taking in rook e2, and I keep an extra pawn. But the problem is these pawns are super isolated, and I actually can't win this position if he defends correctly. But the win that I missed here is I throw in this very annoying check, and it's very annoying because the point is, like, obviously he doesn't want to go back because that's a worse position for the rook. But the point is, at some point my rook gets onto the g file and I defend the pawn. So like here I check and play rook g6, and if I keep that g pawn, the position is actually completely winning. Similarly, if he goes king b4, I go king e3, and then I check and play my rook to g4 at some point. So here I can even give up the pawn and then play rook g4, because then I win the pawn on g7, and this endgame is going to be winning. So yeah, big missed opportunity to throw in the check. I was pushing myself to play a bit faster, but this was a moment where I should have invested the time on working out, should I go rook e5 or should I go king e3? And I had too much optimism for this endgame. I started with cutting the king, and I thought I could just bring the king round. But he plays it very nicely here. He just charges up the pawns, and I can't deal with the pawn on the rook, even though his king's completely cut. And here I have to even be careful that I don't lose after rook g2. And yeah, he just traded off the pawn after me draw. All the pawns are coming off the board, so it's a dead draw now, and I accepted. So yeah, not a bad result, but a pretty bad play in terms of missed opportunities. I mean, some moments of the game I played very accurately, but getting into those two winning positions, like, it's a shame that I missed both of those opportunities. GM Norm chance is still alive there. Round 7, it doesn't get any easier because we have the black pieces against Dennis Kadrich, Montenegrin Grandmaster, Montenegrin, I think that's the word, playing in Montenegro. And we get a real battle in the Sicilian. Yeah, really complex position where he hasn't castled yet, but he's got pretty good placed pieces, and he really shows his class here, because I have a good position if he doesn't play this accurately. But he goes knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, and the point is now he goes queen d3, and he just eyes up this pawn on b5, preparing to queenside castle as well. Because now if I wanted to play a5 and b4, and that really messes them up by opening up the queenside. But here he wants to stop this by putting pressure on the pawn. Now I very rightly realize I can play a5 anyway and just give up this pawn, because after knight takes a4, kicking him back, and the b file is going to be a huge asset for me. But here what I needed to do is play rook b8 and play a pawn down. I greeded on getting the pawn back and went queen b8, queen takes b2, with tempo by attacking the rook. But here he finds king d2, and the king is super duper safe on d2. Like I can't touch the king on d2, right? And now he has like this sequence of moves which, yeah, just kicks me. I've got my queen's about to get trapped, so I have to come back queen b7. And here I wanted to defend e6, so I went queen d7. But actually, I need to go c7 to stop his next move, which is rook b6. Because now after rook c8 defending the bishop f5, I'm just getting completely smacked. And it just, yeah, like one inaccuracy with this queen b8 takes b2, and I'm just, it's almost like it is game over. Like it is pretty much game over here. But the chess gods smile upon me, and you'll see in a moment what happens. Okay, I took, and after knight takes, I can't even recapture this darn knight because of queen d5 is absolutely crushing. So I decide I'll just play a pawn down, a piece down, sorry, and see if I can do any tricks, which I didn't expect it to be. He plays this part very accurately. Like he sticks the bishop on b5, activates his pieces, and now he just finds the plan of queen f1. Fantastic plan, practically and objectively. Like simplify his piece up. I have to take pretty much, otherwise it's like too much pressure on f7. And I have one last trick which I saw here, and here he took on e4, and all of a sudden it goes from completely winning to a like advantageous ending for me. Yeah, super duper lucky for this, because I play rook takes, knight takes, and d5. Like it's not difficult, but it's like a sequence of 3 moves, and you don't expect it when you're completely winning. And it just goes to show you have to really keep your concentration when you think you're about to win. Because I was literally about to resign as well. It was completely winning. Yeah, in this position actually, after knight takes e3, he kind of realized here. He probably realized even earlier. And he had he went through all of the emotions. At first he was laughing, like how could I make this mistake? And then he was upset, and then he was angry. I felt really bad for him. Like chess can be a cruel game, because he played so well, right? Like he played so well up to this point, and then he just handed me, like, yeah, he just handed me everything with this like really simple blunder. And yeah, he tried to untilt himself, but it's very difficult. Like here, he has to play rook a6, and keep this complexity. D5, knight c4 check, and the game goes on. He can play like bishop d3 here. He took, but actually after taking, this endgame is just really bad, because the bishop's so much better than the knight. Like his pieces are just really bad, and I've got these big pass pawns on the king side that he can't deal with. So he takes, and I just keep control of this pawn, and now it's just a matter of keeping control of the position here. This endgame, I get the pawns rolling, and here check, and just reroute the bishop, nice and calm. Bishop f8, bishop comes to c5, and yes, it's just game over. So he resigned here. A very lucky win, and yeah, what can I say? Like chess is a cruel game. Got to keep your focus no matter what. I can't show you round 8, guys, because it's too embarrassing. I'm sad to say I played a horrible move in the opening against a Grandmaster from Belarus, 2539, Kovalev Vladislav. And yeah, I basically mixed up some variations and move orders. And I think the big lesson is just like don't rely on memory for openings, and like you really have to use understanding, because I kind of had a vague idea of what was happening and I felt like that move wasn't right, but it seemed to be the move that I had in memory. Because you get a lot of variations which were similar, but to put it in Ramesh's words, I I brushed my teeth before putting the toothpaste, and then I put the toothpaste on after brushing my teeth, and then all my teeth went bad and I lost the game. So yeah, that was a painful loss, but big lesson in terms of openings and like memory. Quite a tricky period for me because I'm learning a lot of new openings, relearning openings, but I guess I just go slower, and if I'm ever in doubt, I just need to back myself to work out the move rather than trying to memorize what I had kind of analyzed earlier. Round 9, we get matched against a Georgian Grandmaster, and after a very chaotic and complex middle game, we get to this position where he's actually trying to kind of liquidate some of my pressure with my really strong bishop. But I take over the initiative here after exchanging the bishop with bishop d4 and rook e4. And then I just swing the other rook in. And here all of a sudden, his position is tinkering on the edge of complete collapse. And he finds this plan, which I didn't think was right at the time, but I hadn't completely figured out how to beat it, which is essentially he kind of diverts all of my pieces even closer to the attack so that he can take on d6 and try and give me some sort of perpetual check. And it just felt like he didn't have perpetual, but I'll be honest and admit that I hadn't calculated to the end. So the plan is to take here and play rook f1. And here I saw this very long line, which I thought led to a winning ending. And I played the next move quite quickly, which seemed quite natural to me. I need to block this check, basically, because if I move the king, queen f8 is going to be checkmate, and I go rook f2. Actually, here, if I block with the knight, it's just completely winning. And the point is, I need to keep these rooks on the e file. Because after I block with the rook and he takes the rook, well, I guess it's like, why would you lose a rook instead of a knight? But for some reason, I think I wanted to keep the threat of rook takes g, queen takes g2 mate, but actually I don't need that threat, right? I just play knight f2. Like if he takes here now I have the threat of taking, and this is completely winning. And here he just doesn't have any form of perpetual. So yeah, I played the move that I planned too quickly here and missed that win with knight f2. Rook f2, and this is the long ass line which I hadn't completely calculated clearly, but I saw, and this is how it all played out. Like it's this long line where I'm like a rook down. He eventually gets the rook back, but at the end of it, I play check and I can force the queens off like this, and we get into this this endgame position where I can get the king to e2 so that I can check and take on d5 with check again. And I thought this would be winning here because my king is so much more active, right, in this knight ending. But he defended this fantastically. He just goes really active with the king, and I can't keep control of my king side pawns. yeah, he has this move knight f3, which is super annoying as well, which just turns out to be a draw because after takes, we end up queening at the same time. And then I offered draw here, which he accepted. But essentially, what ends up happening is he queens first. I queen with an extra pawn, but he can just fork the pawn. So yeah, I almost could say that I outplayed him in that middle game to get into this big winning position, and then I just short circuited my brain on this one move where I played quite quickly what I thought was a natural move. But yeah, every move I got to calculate and work these things out, because if you spend a bit of time here, you can quite quickly realize knight f2 is winning. Round 10, we're playing against the rising star from Azerbaijan, another Grandmaster, and I end up sacrificing a pawn, 2 pawns here, for a big initiative. And actually, it turns out well because I'm about to cash in and win the knight on g5. But I invest quite a lot of time up to this point, and potentially my decision was a bit rushed here. I need to decide how to take the knight. I can either take with the queen or the rook. And I decided that taking with the queen and going into an endgame was the way to go to try and simplify, because I thought the endgame was looking quite positive. But actually, here, the only way to get an advantage is that I need to play rook takes. And the point is, after rook takes b2, there was a move that I had seen, but I couldn't work out to the end, which is I sacrifice the exchange back to open up his king. And it turns out this position is completely crushing with accurate play. If he goes king d7, I can come back with queen g4 check and get this very annoying pass pawn. And king f8 was the move I was worried about. But there's a sequence of attacking moves here where essentially if I get this bishop out to d3, I was worried about this a3 pawn coming down, but actually I'm just in time with my attack. So I'd seen a line like this, but funnily enough, what ends up happening is I can just let him make the queen, and I'm still checkmating him with my bishop and queen. So either this or check first. My king's super safe on e2, which is what I'd missed in terms of calculation depth. Okay, so I went queen takes g5, and I thought that this ending was good for me because I saw here I could play king d1, and after the move a3, I keep moving my king over king c1, and I'm controlling these passed pawns. Once I sort of gain control of the position, I'm going to be able to start mopping up the pawns, and my extra piece should be able to take me home for the win. But he played a fantastic move here, which is the prophylactic rook a2, with the point that now this rook can check me, because before my knight was stopping rook b1 check, and this check is super duper annoying. So okay, I run the king over and the rook comes to d1, and my pieces just don't have harmony at the moment. I've got the extra piece, but this pawn is super annoying. Sorry, this pawn is super annoying, and I've just got really awkwardly placed pieces. Here he could take on d5. He played king e7, which is also fine. I grabbed the pawn, and now he needs to play the move a5 here. He played rook b1, but actually the problem with rook b1 is it loses control of this d file. And now I found the right plan, and I regroup my pieces, and all of a sudden I get harmony with my pieces, and I'm actually just completely winning by jumping this knight round from the really awkward square on d2 to e3. Now this knight defends everything kind of important in my position, and it's just completely winning now. I had to make 4 or 5 good moves with 2 minutes left, and here I take, he jumps the knight in. I played rook to a8, and he grabbed the pawn. And here was my big blunder with a minute left on the clock and just not calculating because of the time pressure. I just need to play a move like king b3 or king b2 to kick the knight. And then I can check, bring the knight into c4, and it's completely game over. Like just a piece down. Instead, I choose the greedy option of taking and completely overlook that after rook f3, I'm stuck because I need to move the knight, but then after I move the knight, he takes on d5 with a discover check, and that is a huge pawn to give away because after his knight retreats to c7, even though I'm a piece up, I've only got one pawn, and actually this position I think should be a draw. Potentially one way to keep some winning chances alive is knight h6, and it looks really really weird. But if f6, I drop back with bishop b3, and funnily enough, I'm kind of controlling all of these pawns. Potentially, he should play f5 would be more accurate, and jump the knight on f7. It looks very strange. It's a very very weird endgame where he's got these two big pass pawns for my bishop. But I've definitely got the upper edge here, and I can try and grind this out. I need to keep this pawn alive, I think, and find a way to sort of mop up his pawns, which is not going to be easy. Instead, in the game, I tried to bring my king round, which felt logical, bring them closer. But the problem is, he just keeps checking me, and here I actually had to be careful not to end up losing this. I played rook a7, and it's essentially going to be a repetition because he needs to come back, and I can just come back. But yeah, I have to kind of settle out for the draw here because I've lost control of these pawns now. So yeah, another okay result, but like a very unfortunate kind of miss in terms of move 38 under time pressure. In the last round, I was suffering against Italian Grandmaster Brunello, but I managed to scrape out a draw from a worse end game. The chess gods are fair, I guess you could say, because he missed the win at one point. So we escaped with the half point with some tenacious defending in a pretty bad end game. So essentially, I ended the tournament with 6 out of 11. Finished 140th after starting 160th something rank. Gained a fair amount of rating points, plus 10. But I wasn't really close to a norm in terms of overall performance. At one point in the middle, after round 7, when I had that lucky win against Kadrich, I was on for a norm if I could win another game against one of the GMs. But yeah, it was tough. But looking back at the tournament, like playing against 8 Grandmasters, and in a bunch of those I had just winning positions. Yeah, three out of those 4 draws I was winning. So like these guys are very very beatable. And it just goes to show I've got the ability to get into winning positions, but I need to take those opportunities better. Fantastic tournament in terms of opportunities for norms, and because of the sort of scheduling, they're actually redoing this tournament. The 2025 European Championship is in March, so that is probably going to be my next big tournament with kind of big opportunities. So I'll be training hard until then. Thanks for following, and hopefully I can show you some even better results in the future. See you in the next one.